Okay, today's Sunday, it's Timu Menachem. Okay, we're learning Tanya, we're starting Perek Tes. Okay, we're starting Perek Tes. I want you to know that in some yeshivas, when Talmidim start learning Tanya, they start from Perek Tes. In other words, in the tradition of teaching Tanya, when I learned Tanya as a boy, we started from Perek Aleph. Remember, I started from Perek Aleph. We didn't get very far. Well, how many dropping we learned? My first year learning Tanya, we didn't learn very much, but I remember we started with Perek Aleph. Rabbi Yossi Goldstein, Olav Shalom, gave us a shir, and if I got sach verbringen, wenig lernen and sach reden. He verbringt with us. He told us stories. We used to come to his house Shabbos. He would teach us Chassidus. But we started from the beginning. I have since discovered that in some yeshivas, in some mashpiyim, they start learning Tanya from Perek Tes. Perek Tes is a very, very important Perek in the Tanya. It's a very important, very critical Perek in the Tanya. And I'll start with you the way I start with the students that I teach in Beis Rivka, okay? In Beis Rivka, one of my different groups that I teach Tanya to, I actually start Perek Tes. And I begin the shir with the following, that I once saw a picture of a New York Times, it's a newspaper, yeah? Mm-hmm. It's this long. You open up the folder, it's this long, yeah? It's big, gigantic, yeah? And the entire front page said war, W-A-R exclamation point. It was whatever, December 7th, 1941, when the Second World War started for America. So the entire front page of the Times said war, Milchama. Now, the war had been in the making for years, certainly for months, you know. The world was at war for 2 years or longer. The Japanese were at war for even longer than that. And the president, who originally was a pacifist, understood that he has to get into the war, but he had to bring America along with him. So he was being political about it. All kinds of tricks. And then the Japanese attacked us, and then all the questions were off. And there was this big, the entire front page, war, Milchama, war. The caption of Perek Tes is war. That's what this is. This Perek is Milchama, it's war. And I'll explain to you how. The Tanya has a direction, yeah? The Tanya has a point. And as we all know and emphasize, the Tanya is, more than anything else, it's a Sefer of Avodah, right? The Tanya is not a philosophy book. It's not a book of ideas. Even though the Tanya is a book full of original ideas. Tanya is one of the most original Sfarim of Musar ever written. Right? There's a letter from the Rebbe, which I always reference, where he writes about the Alter Rebbe, how amazing a human being he was. And one of the things he wrote is that he created a new derech and Avodas Hashem, and he wrote a new Sefer of Musar, which underscores, which brings forward his new derech and Avodas Hashem. It's called the Avodah Api Hasidus Chabad. And further, of course, you all know that the original Tanya had only 2 sections, what's called Likutei Amorim, Sefer Shel Beinanim, and Likutei Amorim, Shara Yichud Ve'emunah. And then a few years after, he added a 3rd chelik, Likutei Amorim, Yigeres HaTshuva. And then after the Alter Rebbe passed away, his children, the Bnei Agon HaMechabed, the Alter Rebbe's sons, the Mittel Rebbe and the Chaim Avram and the Moshe, made what we call the Tanya HaSholim, the complete Tanya, which has 5 chalakim, that includes also Yigeres HaKedesh and Likutei Safar. But the original Tanya was 2 sections. Likutei Amorim, Sefer Shel Beinanim, Likutei Amorim, Shara Yichud Ve'emunah, and this is the Alter Rebbe's treatise, the Alter Rebbe's derech and avodah. The Shara Yichud Ve'emunah provides the Haskalah, the Shara Yichud Ve'emunah provides the philosophy, and the Sefer Shel Beinanim provides the derech, how to live it. And it's also known, it's also Yodua, that the Alter Rebbe couldn't make up his mind which to put first. The Likutei Amorim Shara Yichud Ve'emunah, which is the philosophy of Chassidus, or the Likutei Amorim Sefer Shel Beinanim, which is the Avodah Derech HaChassidus, the way you live. The Alter Rebbe made the decision to put the Sefer Shel Beinanim first, to put the Avodah before the Haskalah, and to put the Shara Yichud Ve'emunah second, but he left it a mozim, he left hints to this uncertainty, to this shaila. When you're writing a Sefer of Musar that's built on certain philosophical foundations, should you first put the philosophical foundations and then teach the Musar? Or should you first teach the Musar and then put the philosophical foundations? Because the point of the philosophy is the action. So So you put the action first. The Alter Rebbe Lepoil settled on the second way, to put the avoida, the way of life, first. But he left hints that he was thinking possibly to do it the other way. So the Tanya is a philosophy that translates into a way of life, a derech hachaim, a way of living. It's called a derech avoida. How you are supposed to serve Hakadosh Baruch Hu, you're supposed to serve Hashem, and it's written for a beginning. In other words, the Tanya is, you saw there's a Yetzer Hara and you got to deal with it. Or to say it more powerfully, you will not succeed in Avodas Hashem if you're not honest about the Yetzer Hara. And this is the whole Tanya, right? Like it says in the Hayei, Seinacha, Seinacha, yeah, Kitira Chameir, Seinacha, yeah. The key word is Seinach. You see the Chamer, you look at your own Chumrius, you look at your own Yetzer Hara, you see Seinach is your enemy. Only problem is you can't divorce this enemy, you can't get away from this enemy, you can't turn your back on this enemy. You know why? Because this enemy is you. This enemy is me. So you have to address it, you have to deal with it. And the Tanya is predicated on this Yesod, that a person has to acknowledge the Yetzer Hara, the Nefesh HaBahamis, be honest about it, and work to overcome it from that perspective. Work to overcome it from that point of view. From the understanding that the Yetzer Hara is real. One of the most amazing things about the Tanya is a Yid who B'klal had no shaychus to Giz and Yonim. You know, the Chassidim used to say about the Mittel Rebbe, of all the Lubavitcher Rebbeim, the Mittel Rebbe was the biggest Porush. The Mittel Rebbe was completely not in this world. And when he writes it, Mamad Chassidus and Hani Avoida, you see that he understood the Yetzer Hara of his Chassidim so well. And people used to say, how could a Yid with B'klal no shaychus to such an Yonim write this way? Now I don't know what the teretz is when he gave to the Mittel Rebbe, but when he gave to the Rebbe Rashab, I saw someplace where I heard from one of my mashpiyim that they asked him a question like that, and he said, "Was ist Chassidim kommen to me and say they tell me?" The Rebbe Rashab said, "The Chassidim come to me and they tell me. That's how I know." But this is what a Rebbe is. You see, this between a Rebbe and a Godel. A Rebbe is an inyan kloli. A Rebbe is an inyan kloli. His neshama includes our neshama. This is not just nice words. Because a Rebbe is an inyan kloli, he has a shaychus to inyanim, to which we have a shaychus to, even though he himself has no shaychus to it whatsoever. Only a Rebbe. That's why you only go to a Rebbe. B'chlal, the time of the Misnagdim, why do you have to travel hundreds of miles to a Rebbe? You have a Maggid in the next town. Because the Rebbe is a different Indian. You're not going to the Rebbe because he's a smart guy and gives good advice. You're going to the Rebbe because the Neshama of the Rebbe and the Neshama of the Chassid have a previous dikaban. And the Rebbe helps the Chassid from the most correct place. Because the Rebbe is able to help the Chassid, as like it says the Lashon the Pasuk, Ba'asher hu sham, where the person is, that's where the Rebbe is able to help the Chassid. There's no Rachmanis. There's no Rachmanis. But there's no Guzma either. It's the right medicine for the right person because it's literally coming from knowing the blueprint of the person, from knowing where that person is. So the Alter Rebbe writes a Sefer of Musar, Sefer Tanya Kadisha, which speaks to Beinanim, and by the Tshuva, which the Alter Rebbe himself was completely in a different realm. But when the Alter Rebbe speaks to us, he speaks to us where we are, and not where he is. That's what makes the Tanya so remarkable. How the Alter Rebbe understood us and made a Sefer of Musar which speaks to us. So the Alter Rebbe has to teach us how to live as Jews. And living as Jews involves the mastery, the conquest, the winning over the Nefesh HaBahamit, over the Yetzer Hara. Okay, so this is what we call the Pasuk. That the Tanya is going to teach us how to have mastery over a Yetzer Hara. So what the Alter Rebbe does is he gives you a long introduction. Everything we learned until now is an introduction. Everything we learned until now, the first 8 parakim, and we learned that Akdama also was all a Shalom Aleichem. It's all an introduction. It's all setting the stage. How so? The Alter Rebbe Pasha describes to a person what a person is. Alter Rebbe is describing to a person what a person is. In the end of Perek Aleph, he made mention of the Nefesh HaBahamis. He goes back to the Nefesh HaBahamis in chapter 6, 7, and 8, Vav Zayin Achas, which we completed last week. And he talks about the Nefesh HaShene, he talks about the Nefesh HaLekis, and Perek Beis, Gimel, Daled Hey. That's what's happened. We had a huge introduction that Alter Rebbe presented to us what the Nefesh HaBahamis is. He presented to us what the Nefesh HaLekis is, and now he's going to present to us how life is lived by you and me, by ordinary people who have both a Nefesh HaBahamis and both a Nefesh HaLekis. One of the ideas which we haven't yet learned, we're going to learn it in Chaf Ches, but I think it's important to mention now, is that one of the strongest arguments of the Alter Rebbe is that every person is two people. There's two of us. In other words, the good that we do and the not good that we do are not coming from the same nefesh, they're coming from two different places. And as a consequence of that, there's credibility in the good that we do. And the bad that we do doesn't make us into bad people. And that becomes a basis for how a Yid continues to serve the Eibush, to struggle with this battle between Nefesh HaLekis and Nefesh HaBahamis, when he understands this. There's a part of the person which is always good. And because there's a part of the person which is always good, the bad of the person doesn't make the person into a bad person. It makes the person someone who's done things which are not so good. So like I said, we had a long discussion on Nefesh HaBahamis. We had a long discussion on Nefesh HaLekis. And when you turn the page and you start Perek Tes, there's a big headline on the New York Times, war. Perek Tes is the Muhammad, it's the engagement, it's the meeting between the Nefesh HaLekis and Nefesh HaBahamis. In other words, the point of all the parakim we learned until now was to get to this. He set the stage, he defined the Nefesh HaBahamis. He defined the Nefesh HaLekis, now he's describing their meeting. And their meeting is B'chol Rega V'Rega, every day and every minute of our day in our life, and our night, we're meeting the Nefesh HaBahamis, or if you want to say it perhaps honestly, we're meeting our Nefesh HaLekis, and we have to navigate and negotiate between these two nefashos. That's Perek Tes, okay? Now I'm going to start reading in 1 minute. I'm just going to say one thing. Rabbi say, the succinct way of saying Nefesh HaLekis and Nefesh HaBahamis in light of what we learned is, Nefesh HaLekis is mind, heart. Nefesh HaBahamis is heart, mind. Nefesh HaBahamis is a very smart guy. The Nefesh HaLekis is capable of emotions. But the essence of the Nefesh HaLekis is Moyach, that is Shalat al Alev, or in the Lashon from the Chazal, Tzadikim Libam V'Reshusam, the mind is controlled by the heart, and the Nefesh HaBahamis is heart, mind. Huh?
The mind is controlled by the heart. Tzadikim?
By Tzadikim, the heart is controlled by the mind. Tzadikim Libam V'Reshusam. And in the Nefesh HaBahamis, it's heart, mind. In the Nefesh HaBahamis, the heart tells the mind what it wants. Now the mind then comes up with the most profound and brilliant explanations for the heart's interest, but because the foundation is flawed, because the foundation is faulty, the entire building that's built on top of it is built on heart. In other words, it's built on sheker. This is the nature of the two personalities. Now practically what this means is, the mind is closer to the truth. The Nefesh HaLekis is closer to the truth. But the Nefesh HaBahamis is closer to us. Nefesh HaLekis is emes. Nefesh HaLekis has an absolute truth about itself. But like the mind, it's very abstract, it's very cold. The Nefesh HaBahamis is a behemoth. He's an animal. And we discussed this at length. An animal is not necessarily bad. An animal is simply self-centered and short-sighted. Animals think about themselves, and they're not interested in principle. Come to Nefesh HaBahamis, talking about God. He says, listen, it's not like I don't like him, I do like him. I can't eat him. I can't put him in my gut. I can't enjoy how he tastes. So Nefesh HaBahamis has no interest in those kinds of things. Nefesh HaBahamis is closer to us, and that's the battle. Nefesh HaLekis is emes, and Nefesh HaBahamis is regesh, and this convergence is the test. To be ma'adif, to give precedence to a less direct reality of yourself because it's truer over a more immediate reality of yourself because it's more subjective. So let's read it inside. Perek Tes, Perek Tes, which means we're on page 26 in the Tanya, Daf Yud Gimel Lamed Beis, beginning of the Perek Tes. And again, I'm repeating, there are mashpiyim who start the limud of Tanya here, and like I said, in Besnifka, I teach different groups of Tanya, different girls, different groups. One of the many places, a few places where I start this Perek Tes, because I heard this, when I was a bacher and a younger man, I understood why you should start with Perek Tes, because you're bypassing the hatzah, the reka, the presentation of what the Nefesh HaBahamis is, and the presentation of what the Nefesh HaLakis is, and you're getting right to the heart of the matter, the person, the life. That's Perek Tes. V'hine, Mekaim, Mishkan, Nefesh HaBahamis, Shem Eklipas Nega, the seat, the place of sitting, of the animal soul which comes from a klipa, which is called Nega. B'chol Ish Yisrael, as it is in each individual Jew, who belev b'chol asmali, is in the heart, and specifically in the left ventricle of the heart, shuhomalei dam, which is filled with blood. Uksiv, and it says in Pasuk, Yadamu nefesh. The blood is nefesh, and when you say the blood is nefesh, you mean nefesh habahamis. The blood itself is living. And by the way, you have two different psukim that contradict one another, and you have to figure out the resolution. The Rebbe talks about all of these ideas, and I don't know the answer at the moment, but it's just very important to see it. One pasuk says nefesh habasar badamhi, that the nefesh is in the blood, and the other pasuk says hadam hu hanefesh, not that in the blood there's life. The blood itself is the life. But the Alter Rebbe brings this latter pasuk, hadam hu hanefesh, and he says that this means nefesh habahamis. The blood is the animal soul. V'lachein, and accordingly, since the nefesh habahamis' seat is in the left side of the heart, which is malei dam, therefore, kol atayvis, all desires, v'espirus, and boast, which means a tendency to be showy and superficial, v'kas, and anger, v'deimein, and the like, hein belev, they begin in the heart. Now, for the technical people, tayvis, hispirus, and kas is hakina v'atayva v'hakoved mitziyin esodem and oilam. Right? You know the Mishnah, right? Hakina v'atayva v'hakoved, jealous and lust and honor, mitziyin esodem and oilam. Kina, tayva, and koved is the three midas rois of klipa. Kina is eish, which is gevura. Here he calls it kas. Tayva is chesed or mayim, and here he calls it tayva. And koved is his spoilus, to show off, which is not the fetus. There's three different kinds of klipas, basically. One is the klipa of intensity, of passion. This creates anger and jealousy and violence. They say, right, there's three cardinal sins, right? Shvichas domim, Aveidas Zora, and Gili Arayis. Gili Arayis is chesed of klipa. Shvichas domim is gevura of klipa, and Aveidas Zora is tiferes of klipa. Because Aveidas Zora means a fake face, an artificial front. Ultimately, behind Aveidas Zora is the Eibishter, but the Eibishter is too intangible to be able to relate to. So you make a picture, you make a pretty face, you make a secondary God. This is tiferes. So in life, the Yitzhahara of chesed is tayva, to give in to desire, temptation, lust, things that a person wants to give in to. The Yitzhahara of gevura is anger and vengeance and violence and even murder. The Yitzhahara of tiferes is to look nice. Is to look nice. Inside it could be sheker achein behevel hayefi, but as long as it looks nice on the outside, that's the klipa of tiferes. And it says in Chassidus that this klipa of tiferes is called makif, indirect. When you're enjoying food or drink or other pleasures, there's an immediate effect on the person. When a person is filled with passion and anger and intensity, we know exactly how that feels. But the pleasure of looking nice, what are you enjoying? What are you enjoying? What are you getting that the other person thinks you have more money than him? The other person thinks you have better taste than them, whatever it is. It's the pleasure of nothing, of hevel, of his spiders. Right? In the first Perek, the Rebbe says, Halus, Litzonus, his spiders, Advanabetelim, is Mised HaRuach, Mischein Ruach, garnished. It's hevel, it's substancelessness, it's air, it's an emptiness, it's nothing, yeah. So it says in Chassidus, that the klipa of Teferes, the klipa of a makif is very, very difficult to master. In other words, for a person to overcome taivus is easy. For a person to overcome kas and kino is easier. But to overcome a taivus, where the yesod of the taivus is nishka metzias, where the yesod of the weakness is based simply on looking pretty, where what's behind it is a completely immaterial, it's almost impossible Klipa tova kama. They state in Chassidus that the klipa of makif is one of the hardest klipas to deal with, even though it has no substance. So Alter Rebbe uses 3 words. These 3 words. The Alter Rebbe uses 3 words. These 3 words are the standard 3 words. Hakina v'atayva v'akov v'metziin sadim min oilam. Or Avodah Zarah gilarois is shvichas damim, which is Avodah Zarah is teferes, gilarois is chesed, and shvichas damim is gevura. These are the 3 big Yetzer Hara. These are the 3 basic poles of Yetzer Hara. And my friends who are experts in all of these new kinds of studies will say that there's personality types. Some people's if you have an Aish personality, you're more prone to anger. If you have a Mayan personality, you're more prone to Taiva. If you have a Ruach personality, you're more prone to covet, to hispidus, to Avodah Zarah. It's a personality, but it's Yetzer Hara. Whether it's your personality or it's not your personality, it's Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Nefesh Bahamas exists in the heart. It starts from the heart. And from the heart comes these 3 basic Midas Rois, Midas Rois, Taiva, Nispirus, and Kaas. And now the Rebbe continues. Umei halev, and from the heart, hey mispashes the chalaguf, they radiate to the whole body. The heart is the engine. The heart is the place of passion. The heart is the place of feeling. The heart is the place of, if you will, of commitment. What the psychologists would call trigger. Yeah? And from there, it's mispashes the chalaguf. The body responds, the body physiologically responds to what one feels in the heart. And when the Nefesh HaBahamis has his way or her way with the heart of a person, it triggers the heart to go in the direction of Taivis and Hispidus and Kas, and then the body reacts to that. And then he continues the Gamei L'Lameach. But nobody wants to call himself a pig. Nobody wants to call himself a violent man. Nobody wants to call himself a show-off. So you have an explanation. It's a big philosophy. It's a shita. It's a shita, you know. First you shoot the arrow, and it hits wherever it hits. Then you draw the circle around it so it looks beautiful. But it's the shita is not the source of the life. The life is the source of the shita. When a person chooses a path and then comes up with a philosophy to justify, they may be smart enough to fool you. And that you should say, oh, what a brilliant shita, what a brilliant approach to life. But zir kemen, it's not. Oneself knows in some place that this shita is not the source of the shita of the way of life. The way of life is the source of the shita. When you choose how you want to live and then come up with an explanation, that's called behema. Smart behema, but a behema nevertheless. Let's read. Okay? Umeyalev, mispashet b'chalaguf, from the heart it radiates to the whole body. V'gam eile lemeach shaberosh, it ascends also into the brain, which is in the head. Lachshev ulaharev, to think. And to think, what's the difference between machshava and hirur? You'll have to ask Arov. There's 2 different words that both denote thinking. Because there's 2 different types of thought. One type of thought is thinking about something theoretically, think about the idea. And the other kind of thought is thinking about it practically, how to do it. And the latter kind of thought, thinking about something practically, is what's called in Chassidus machshava. Ulehischakein b'hem, and to be creative, and to be intuitive in all of this. This means to say, to come up with the chokhmah, to come up with the reason and the logic to justify this shita. K'mei hadam, just like the blood, that k'mei shehadam, like the blood, mekere belev. The root of the blood is in the heart. Umei halev, and from the heart, mispashet b'chol eivarim, it radiates all of the limbs. V'gam eila lameach shaberosh, goes up to the mind and the head. And this is the nefesh habahamis. The nefesh habahamis is not stupid. The Nefesh HaBahamis is not a fool. The Nefesh HaBahamis is simply not honest with himself. But he's such a big chacham that he works it out that in his own mind he is honest with himself. But the yesod is, it's the old rule. If you shoot the arrow and then you draw the bullseye and you haven't hit anything, you have to first make the target and then shoot the arrow. And then hopefully you'll get it to where it's supposed to go. The Nefesh HaBahamis doesn't do that. He's a behemoth. He starts with heart. He starts with how he feels, with the 3 midas that the Alter Rebbe lists, and then he works it out. That's the behavior. Now you know from our conversations that the Nefesh HaBahamis of a person in general, and of a Yid in particular, doesn't have to be evil in the way the world defines the world. The word. The Nefesh HaBahamis doesn't have to be a killer, or a thief, or some other kind of sinner in a gross way. Nefesh Bahamis, by a Yid, by a human being in general, Lahavla by a Yid in particular, whose Nefesh Bahamis comes from Klippa, doesn't have to be after bad things the way the world understands bad. It has to be one simple Yesod. And that is that the center of the Nefesh Bahamis is the Nefesh Bahamis. The animal soul center is self. What's called an internal locus of control. The center of the Nefesh Bahamis is me. Now, from that me can be all kinds of things. But when the center is me, then the midas are midas rois. And the seichel, the logic, which one employs to explain their position, isn't honest. It makes sense, it's logical, but it's not honest. When the Yesod is not true, the entire building is built on a bad foundation. And in the case of the Nefesh Bahamis is heart, Nefesh Bahamis is self, and all the explanations it gives are subjective on that basis. This is the Nefesh Bahamis. And the Alter Rebbe continues. However, McCain. Oh, by the way, one thing I want to say, that the Rebbe has a note over here, Tanya, which is quite famous, where the Rebbe observes that the physical fact is that there's blood in both ventricles of the heart. There's blood here and there's blood here. The Alter Rebbe says the left side of the heart is moledam, full of blood, which is the seat of the Nefesh Bahamis. The right side of the heart has no blood, which is the seat of the Nefesh Elokis. So the Rebbe says the physiology is that there's blood in both sides of the heart. So the Rebbe explains that the purpose of the left side of the heart is blood. The purpose of the right side of the heart, and I'm using now physiological terms, is the ruach, is the oxygenation of the blood. So even though the right side of the heart has blood, the inyan of the right side of the heart is not about the blood, it's about the ruach, which goes into the nefesh, which goes into the blood. So philosophically, the left side of the heart is about blood. It's about blood. Not only there's blood there, its inyan is blood. Passion, emotion, nefesh. The right side of the heart also has blood, but in Yonah, the inyan of the right side of the heart is not about the blood. To the contrary, it's about the ruach. It's about air. It's about something which is higher and finer. So even though physically there's blood in both sides, its inyan is not passion. Its inyan is not blood. This inyan is something which is more cold and reasonable. So the Rebbe now says, however, Mekei, Mishkan, Nefesh Elokis, the place of the seat of the divine soul is B'meach. Sheberosh is in the brain. That's how Nefesh Elokis starts. Now, of course, this means that the Nefesh Elokis, the mind and Nefesh Elokis have an objectivity. They have a sense of truth. They have a sense of principle. In other words, the brain wants to know what emes is, as opposed to what emes is for me. That's the upside of the brain. The downside of the brain is that he's quiet. He's not a big tumlet. And we're creatures of tumult in most cases. So we hear the Nefesh Bahamis before we hear the Nefesh Elokis. But the Nefesh Elokis has a certain midas emes. He's b'moichin sheberosh. The Nefesh Elokis exists in the mind. And from the mind it radiates to the whole body. In other words, from the Nefesh Elokis' point of view, the mind is a trigger. You use your mind to ask yourself why I am. You use your mind to ask yourself who I serve. And you use your mind to tell your body to do what who I am and who I serve mandate. From the moyach, there's a trigger to the whole guf to do what the Eibishter wants. And then he adds the gambalev. Then it also radiates to the heart. But here he says the words, B'cholol hayemoni, in the right ventricle of the heart, she'ein beidam, which has no blood, like it's written in the pasuk, leiv chocham liyamine. A wise person's heart is to the right. In other words, the heart of the right person is the right ventricle rather than the left ventricle. Now we tell you that. The left ventricle is full of passion. The right ventricle, even though it has blood, but its inyan is not blood. And if you're a chocham, you know that you want to go to the yamin of your lev, the right side of your heart, which is missing dam, rather than the left side of your heart, which is molei dam, which is full of blood. I want to tell you a very interesting, sweet thing. That the Azez itself, the Rebbe, every word out of the Rebbe's mouth is Ein Sof, it's Atzmas Ein Sof. It's really amazing. And as much as we have, to collect all the things that Rebbe said, and all the things that Rebbe taught, and all the things that Rebbe inspired, it's so much. And to be very honest, as much as we have, we want more, But they tell a story about a person in Yechidus, Pasha. I was reading, I'm sorry, I'm digressing. I was reading, there's a book that came out called Yechidus from Amdor Halperin. 2 volumes came out so far. It's Pashat Yechidus that he compiled in the Kfar Chabad magazine. He's published them in books. So in the 2nd volume, he has a section on Harav Adin Eben Yisrael, Adin Stein, the whole Fuhr Stemmer Gesund. He says, a lot of the people in this room are going to understand this better than I. He says he feels bad that people did not have the experience of being in the Rebbe's room in Yechidus. Because when you met the Rebbe in Yechidus, it was a different person. There was such a embracing. I mean, I don't have the words he has, but he says, I experienced being by Fabrengen and seeing the Rebbe in a public forum, and then being by the Rebbe alone.
Are you quoting?
Steinsaltz. Yeah, I'm quoting. If I was quoting, I would be more secure. The Teuchen is his. I read it a few weeks ago, and the way my brain works is, I had this new information in my head, and I forgot where I got it from. And then, over the course of Shabbos, I remembered, I read it in this book. Steinsaltz said it. Steinsaltz is a very deep person. Not just a great man, he's a deep man, which is quite unusual. You don't usually have that combination. And he says that in the Rebbe's room, you experienced the Rebbe's personality, how large it was and how open it was, how positive it was, and how embracing it was. He's so much better than I'll ever be. And I mean, he's writing what he experienced. I'm writing what I'm repeating what I read, and I don't even remember Genoy the Oisius. But this is the Teuchen Azam, the Rebbe alone. There was an incredible koyach of upliftedness, partially by being in his presence. In other words, before the Rebbe opened his mouth, before a word was exchanged, something very real occurred in being in the Rebbe's Daled Amos. And the Rebbe talked to people, each one on his own level. So this is our word.
Experience?
Huh?
Did you ever have the experience?
The last time I was in the Rebbe's room, I was 9.5. I remember it vaguely, but no, I didn't. I mean, I remember, the Rebbe used to look at me. He used to look at my eyes. That's my relationship with the Rebbe. And for me, that's very real.
It's hard to register. It's very hard to register all the
Yechidus.
Yeah. And then Ronak comes right away.
Okay, anyway, I'm describing to you what Steinsaltz describes. Maybe he had a different heritage. This is Angefir. I've heard this from other people, but never. He has a very incredible way of making you understand what he's saying. It's a special skill. But anyway, so this person was in the Rebbe's room. I don't know if it was a man or a woman. And the Rebbe asked him, why did the Eibush put the heart on the left side of the body? The heart is not in the center. It's on the left side. Yeah, whatever, the lungs are on the right side. Why did the Eibush put the heart? And the Rebbe said, because when you're facing another person, it's their right side. A balabati shavot. A simple, hatzike Yiddish Hasidish shavot. It's not profound, it's simple, and its simplicity is ancient. The Eibush to put your heart on the left, because your left is somebody else's right. In other words, the other person is getting on their right side your heart. Meaning to say that the purpose of the heart being on the left is to emphasize kindness, not the opposite. This is the word. It's such a sweet word. It's a simple word. It's a simple word. The Rebbe said simple things also. And of course, when the Rebbe said simple, it's deeper than the... In any case, this is what the Alter Rebbe describes here. There's the Nefesh Lekis and the Nefesh Bamis. They each have a stronghold. They have a center. They have a place where they're anchored. And then the Mispashet B'chala Gufkul. Let's continue to read Nacha Bisalem. Vehi, and this emotion, this presence of the godly soul in the right side of the heart is Ahavas Havayim, is a love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kirishpei shal heves, misla heves. The word rishpei means hot coals. And the connotation of the word rishpei means a fire that has an anchor and therefore has a depth. Rishpeha rishpei heis shal heves yudke, it says in Teirei, means a fire that's very hot. The heat is not in the flames. The heat is in the gacheles, in the coal. So the connotation of the word Avas Hashem Kirishpei shal heves, there's a flame, and the flame makes a big tumult. That's what a flame is. It makes a lot of noise. It shows off. But the intensity of the fire and the longevity of the fire is not determined by the size of the flames. It's determined by the concentration of the gacheles, of the coal, and that's what the word Rishpei means. Mislaheves, which is flacket, that crackles. Believe in the heart of Hamaskilim, Hamavinim, umizbainim bedaita. Right? So maskila means chachma, mevinim umizbainim means bina, and daita means das. Right? Alter Rebbe uses two words for bina. Maskila means those who are intuitive about emes. Mevinim, those who understand emes. Umizbainim means those who pay attention to emes. And bedaitam, the emes becomes personal, which is what mayach hadas is. Asher b'moicham, which is in their mind. Bidvarim hame'edirim es ha'ahava, with words, with thoughts, with ideas that arouse love. So the nefesh of the kiss, the seat is in the mayach, and because the seat of the nefesh of the kiss is in the mayach, the nefesh of the kiss is true, but cold. From the mayach, it's mispasher b'chol haguf kula. The whole body is told by the mayach, do what's right, not what's expedient. Do what's right, not what's comfortable. Do what's right, not what's popular. Do what's right, do what's true. Not what's superficially satisfying and diminishing. You don't want to put yourself into Mitzrayim. Right? The whole story of Tzias Mitzrayim is you don't want to make yourself into a smaller person. The whole lineage of the Nefesh HaBahamis is one big Mitzrayim. To reduce yourself to a smaller size based on your environment. That's what it is. And the Mayach says, don't do it. And then the Mayach is mispashit also in the lab, that there should be feelings. So the first feeling the Alter Rebbe describes is Ava Kedish Beheish, which exists, V'lei Maskilim, Amavinim, Umezbenyanim B'dayim. Then the Alter Rebbe says something very wonderful. This is really, and I mean, every week you come here, you'll hear the same thing again. This is one of my most favorite Nekudas in the whole Seder Tanya Kadisha. This is the only place in Tanya where this is mentioned. And I think it's really important for people to kochen something. What is Midas HaTiferes? What is the emotion of Tiferes? Rachmanis, we're learning again as a tshuva. Now we're holding Dr. Pedig Yud Aleph. We're starting Pedig Yud Aleph. But in Pedig Zayin, talk about Rachmim. Pedig Memhei, Rachmim. Maybe look in Tanya, Tiferes Rachmim. You know what? But there's another side to Tiferes. What that side to Tiferes is? Simcha. Simcha. What do Rachmim and Simcha have in common? Doesn't sound like much, huh? I'll tell you what it is. Rachamim means I feel you. Rachamim means I feel you. Chesed means I react to you. Gvura means I judge you. Tiferes means, and Rachamim means I'm actually feeling what you're feeling. And if what you're feeling is not good, I have Rachamim, yeah? What if I feel you and what you're feeling is terrific? What happens if I feel you and you are terrific? So then you have Simcha. In the relationship between the Yid and the Eibishter, the Midas HaTiferes, so Rachamim is when I'm far away. When a person is far away from them, I'll talk about tshuva. Le'ein Rachamim Rabim al Nafshei, right? It's Rachmanas and mein Neshama, that mein Neshama in the Chelik HaViv al Mamish. Und guck, wo ich hab ihn verschleppt. Look where I placed it, yeah. What if your Neshama is in a good place? And then there's the Simcha of the Dveikas Nelikus. The joy of being one with God. Look at the next words. V'chein simchas halev b'tiferes Hashem. This, people don't know this. It's one of the most beautiful, few words in the whole Tanya. It's not discussed in a lot of places in Chassidus, but the Alter Rebbe says the other side of Tiferes is Simcha. Rachamim is when things are not good and you feel the situation, you're Rachmanis. But when you feel the situation, you feel what the other person feels. And in this case, Chesed means I want a relationship with the Eibishter. Gvura means I'm trying to determine the truth of my relationship with the Eibishter. And Tiferes means I have a relationship with the Eibishter. So it's joyous, simple. The joy of the heart, b'tiferes havaya, in experiencing the beauty of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, v'hadar ge'ene, and the grandeur of His power. Okay, kasher einei ha'chocham ha'shebereishim. When the eyes of the wise man, person, Hashabareshi, which is in his mind, using his wisdom and using his understanding, mistaklim b'yikara de malka. Don't only relate to the Eibishter like a concept, which is what Maya Habina does, but relate to the Eibishter by something that you could actually see, the histaklus, to see alakus, however the process that gets you to there, the Alter Rebbe doesn't even go into. But there's something called this takola b'ikar malka, to be intimate with alakus, like as if you could see him. V'tiferet b'ikar malka, the glory of the king. V'teferes gedulasei, and the beauty of his greatness, which is adei cheker v'yintzov v'tachas, that can't be researched and it can't be known fully. Ke mevua b'moka macha, as in other places. Your reaction is simcha. Your reaction is simcha. When the Eibush is an idea, you're always separated. And if the Eibush is an idea, you're always separated. Love means I want, and fear means unfortunately I don't have. But when the Eibush just stops being an idea and becomes real, and real in the human experience, obviously there's a Eiran, and there's Aracham, and there's small people and big people. That the person has a sense of the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as if he could see him. That doesn't make you want. That doesn't make you sad. That makes you feel like $1 million in Eibishter's presence. That's the meat of Teferes. The emotion of Teferes is being one with another. And when the emotion of Teferes is being one with Eibishter, the response is Simcha. And the Alter Rebbe concludes, V'chein she'ar midas kedeshes habalev, just like it's true of Chesed, and just like it's true of Teferes, it's true of the other emotions, she'hei mechabad she'b'meich, and it comes to mind. Notice that the Rebbe doesn't give even an illustration in this particular for midas hagvura, right? For midas hayira. When he talked about the nefesh habahamis, which emotions did he say? He said all three, right? Taivis, Spidus, and Kas. It's Chesed, Gvura, Teferes. When it comes to the nefesh halakis, he brings only Chesed and Teferes. And these few lines that say that Teferes is Simcha, it's the only place in Tanya you're going to find it. And I've only seen it only in one other place in the Maimon Chassidus. And I think it's so exciting. Push it. This is, Teferes means to feel what another feels. That's what it means. The only way to feel another feels is to belong with that other. So if that person is not in a good, or my own nefesh halakis, if my neshama is in a bad place, I have rachmanas on my neshama. If my neshama is in a good place, I delight, I rejoice in my neshama. Anyway, this is the mulchama between the nefesh halakis and the nefesh habahamis. Give me 1 second. I'm going to stop the shir now. I want to tell you a vot, and then I'll let you ask your questions, and then this is there's a very, very prominent, very important shliach. Okay, the name's not important. I'll say without names. I had time to fabreng with a certain person who was a bocher in Tafshin Lamed Ches. Tafshin 1977, never had a heart attack. Erev Shmini Atzeres, Erev Shana Rabba, Erev Shmini Atzeres, the Rebbe gave out a Maimon Mugler. The afternoon before the Rebbe's heart attack, the Rebbe gave out a Maimon edited. In those years, it almost never occurred. It was a big chiddush. There were very, very few edited Maimorim, and it was in Esrusa Deliyela. The Rebbe wanted to prepare the Maimon. And so the Bachar worked on it. They wrote the Hanocha, they put the Baal Mekayim in the Horace. I'm sure Rabbi Yale was involved. And they gave it into the Rebbe out of Yom Tov. And the Rebbe made corrections, and it was sent out, and it was printed. Now the way it used to work in those days, it was before the days of the computer, so they used to make footnotes. If you had to change a number on a footnote, everything would go nuts. Because, if you added another footnote, you had to change all the other, you had to do it manually. And then also there was the problem of cross-referencing. If in the first draft you wrote C Ha'ara 6, and then you changed the numbers, and Ha'ara 6 became Ha'ara 4, and you don't even know what. So one of the ways of avoiding this kind of confusion was, instead of adding a new number, was to make a number with a star. So oftentimes, the Rebbe's edited the Maimon twice. So they would prepare the Maimon with Mara Mekamis and Ha'aras. The Rebbe used to work very hard on the editing and add notes and corrections to the footnotes. Then it was typeset, and it went in a second time. The second Haggadah was usually very light. Occasionally, the Rebbe would go over the whole thing again, but usually the second editing was simply mopping up. It was perfecting the efforts that made. So that day, Shana Rebbe, in the middle of that Maimon, it's a Maimon from Erev Sukkot, the Rebbe added a footnote with a star. I don't know the number, but you could look it up and find it, because the star is still in the text. Shemaime Lev Chocham Liyamin, parenthesis Tanya Perek Tes, what we just learned. The heart of the wise man is to the right. If you look at the Maimon, you see that footnote is totally not necessary. It was Poshat a Remes what was going to happen that night. You understand? The Rebbe prepared a Maimon, and it was edited to Shana Rabbe, the second editing. And I at the time when he told this to me, I went and I looked at the Maimon and I tried to. He said the ha'ara was totally unnecessary. Mamish hours later, the Rebbe had Le'aleinu with a heart attack, and that footnote made sense. The Rebbe Pashut wrote in, and again, if you take out your maimed from that Erev Sukkot, Tafshel Lamed Ches, it's not hard to find. Whatever the Dibur HaMaschal is, Chag HaSukkos, whatever, it's a classic. It's a maimed that Rebbe said Erev Sukkot. Yud Gimel Tishrei Tafshel Lamed Ches, the Rebbe said a maimed. It came out Mugar, Hashana Rebbe. The afternoon before the stroke, the Rebbe wrote these words, K'mayim Alev Chacham Liyamin. So I'm not telling this to you because it's Negeh Pshat and Tanya. I'm telling it to you because it touches on what we just learned. Okay, questions or comments? Okay, we'll take a break and we'll do Hayem Yem Be'ezra. Thank you for coming. It's a good morning.